Jim Bell. I was raised in Amarillo, Texas, right outside it, just north of Amarillo, Texas, on a little acreage. I actually found out about the Villages, Florida from a friend of mine in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. They live in Tallahassee, and they were up there skiing. I was skiing with them. We had some mutual friends. They introduced me and told me about this great place called Villages. So I ended up coming here like everyone else to retire, actually. That was the thought, but I'm not a very good retired person. So I ended up, after a 40-something year Wall Street career, get into real estate, and I love it. First real job, other than being on a horse working on ranches off and on during my high school years primarily, was at the American Quarter Horse Association. I raised horses growing up. I was there for a couple of years while I was going to college. My sophomore year of college, I got accepted to go to I first got a job at Merrill Lynch as a billing clerk. Then during grad school, a couple of years later, I ended up going to the JET program, that stands for Junior Executive Training Program, with Merrill Lynch in New York City. So I lived up there for a year, and you can imagine what this cowboy looked like in New York City. My first probably at least 3 or 4 years in the brokerage business with Merrill Lynch and Amarillo. A little team of us did probably 35% of the volume on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange in the live cattle futures contract. So just about everything I've done from birth on has guided me in the direction that I find myself in now. And from Wall Street, of course, I retired. I spent some 40 years in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And in Wall Street, I had my own radio show in the Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston markets for many years. If you're bored in the Villages, it's your own fault. Well, believe it or not, I got bored. I've been doing this radio show and my financial advisory business for a long, long time, many years. And from that, my mind was, I had plenty to do, obviously, playing golf, I shoot pool, I swim in one of the regional rec center pools all the time. But it just wasn't enough for my brain. My brain wasn't being massaged, so I thought real estate. That's how I got into real estate and started looking into it. And I thought, what the heck, I'm still going to be with people. The Wall Street part of my career was helping people build their assets for retirement. Now we are retired. And so it's been more like, for the most part, helping people to change their lifestyle and get into retirement here, which has been most rewarding, I must say. Oh gosh, I get up, I do at least one, if not two open houses every single day, but not on Sundays. I kind of take Sundays off. Pretty much get ready for the open house. I'm usually at the open houses 30 minutes early. I usually do open houses for 2 or 3 different realtors at my company, which is Realty Executives. I play golf. If I'm not playing golf, I'm going to Palmer Legends because they have a driving range. I'll either play the executive courses or sometimes, not right now, it's too hot to play the championship courses. I'm done by about 11:30 because it gets so hot here. But I like to play the executive courses first thing in the morning, 7:30 before it gets hot. Usually try to do my swimming. I do laps in one of these these are Olympic-sized pools. I don't swim. I do these kick trainer exercises to keep my legs in shape primarily with a mask and a kickboard and some pins. I also work out. I go to that Genesis Health Spa in Spanish Springs. Is my favorite because it's not quite as crowded as the one in Brownwood. At my age, I'm just trying to maintain what I got, Out to dinner here in the Villages a couple times a week, I guess. I eat a lot of Mexican food. We think Mexican food in Texas is one of the 5 food groups. I go to the various Mexican food places quite a bit. My favorite place probably to go, believe it or not, in the Villages is the Japanese Steakhouse in Lake Sumter Landing. I love that place. First of all, I'm a Christian. So I have Christian values. I value honesty, integrity. Well, it's interesting. I don't know how people do it with 3 or 4 kids. I was a single dad of 1 son. It took a lot of time. I managed the Merrill Lynch office in Denton, Texas at the time that I, got custody of my son. And luckily, because of the central time zone, the markets are closed at 3:30 in Texas time. So I could be home almost for the time he was. And we did a lot together. I just made sure that all the bases were covered. He was in junior golf. I coached his baseball team, Little League baseball teams. We went scuba diving. I taught him how to snow ski. And just the normal day-to-day stuff, being a dad and a mom and cooking meals, making sure he was up on time, off to school, that sort of thing. In fact, I had a young man that was a au pair from Denmark. Because I really was kind of lost that first year, actually. And I knew it. I needed a little bit more about time management and so forth. Once we got over that, got used to that, it became routine. And it was a routine I cherished. I cherished to this day being a parent and the closeness that I share with my son. Funny you ask. Of course, everybody I think in America has watched Yellowstone. I've watched it twice, in fact. I love that because of the connection, of course. I watched my favorite one of all time, probably still, it's Heartland. I think they're in their 18th season now. Most recently, I've watched Landman, and I can't wait for the next season of Landman to come out. I'm a perennial country western guy, as you might imagine. So I think if you ran George Strait for president of the state of Texas, he'd win even if Donald Trump was his opponent. So I'm a big George Strait fan also. Also like Mark Chestnut. I'm a big fan of Mark Chestnut's music. That's a good question. You know, a lot of clients are skeptical of realtors for some reason. I haven't quite figured that one out because I think at least the realtors I know of in my company are some of the most honorable people you'd ever meet. If there's a particular person that is, you know, a little bit skeptical, I try to allay their fears by just assuring them or insuring them or assuring them, whatever you want to say, that you're in the right place. You know, it's different than it was. I'm no longer after the monetary gain that I was the lion's share of my career in Wall Street. Here it's more about the satisfaction of helping people find the right home or helping people sell their home. Finalizing a deal and making sure the seller got what they wanted, which is to sell their home, or a buyer has bought a home at the home that they most desire at the best possible price they can get. That's enough for me. When I go to a closing, I know that's happened. Oh gosh, I'd have to say influences over the years. I also run the Dallas Cowboy fan club here in the Villages. I would have to say Tom Landry. I used to play in his Fellowship of Christian Athletes golf tournaments and stuff around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've got all of his books. I'm a big fan of Tom Landry. I would advise everybody to get a copy of, just subscribe. It's not that much. I think it's $90 a year for the Villages Daily Sun. There's a section in there that comes every Thursday that's the entire schedule for literally everything in the Villages. We have I think it's 106 rec centers now. The schedule for all of those is in every Thursday. Anything going on in the Villages is there for the finding every Thursday. In fact, it takes me an hour Thursday just to go look at what the things that I like that I might be involved in the next week and what their times they are, and I quickly put them on my schedule so I know where they are. Being able to deal with people on a one-on-one level is probably my biggest strength, I would say. I got there, you know, not only through Wall Street, but just through my cowboy roots too. I mean, I've been around every kind of person you can imagine over the years, and so that's helped me. Not per se. I don't do it for money anymore. I have helped people in my real estate career. I'll give you an example. I've had 2 or 3 people ask me recently that were potential buyers, and one of them became a buyer. What did you do for a living before you got into real estate? Of course, I tell them the very first thing out of their mouth is, you got any stock tips? I usually always have a stock tip or 2. I don't really give those out because I'm not in the business anymore. I don't just hand out advice. For one thing, I don't know their financial wherewithal yet. People would ask me, what would you be doing with your money? Well, that always leads me to, what are you doing with your money now? Most people that I've met in the Villages say, well, we're still with our financial advisor that we've had for umpteen years and wherever they're from. And we still do things the same way. And I said, well, what is that way? Well, most people say, well, we're still in pretty much growth oriented and we're in it for the long term. One guy told me he was 78 years old and he's still 80% in stocks and he's in it for the long term. And I said, fella, not to be the bearer of bad news, but you're 78 years old. How many more long terms do you think you have? I try to steer people toward income producing. If they want to change up what they're doing and be more appropriate to their current lifestyle, which is they're now spending their nest egg and or still saving their nest egg, not necessarily trying to grow it, then I try to steer them toward markets that pay a monthly income, that are safer than the stock market and are not as volatile as the stock market. And so that's been helpful. About everybody I've told that to. The other thing that does for them is most of that service after they buy those CEFs, closed-end funds, to do that, if they reinvest the dividends, that service is free at most brokerage firms. It doesn't cost a penny. And then they can compound that return at whatever the monthly going rate is. So I've been helpful to people because of my Wall Street career. Seeing the light go off when in their brains when a couple comes into a home and I'm either at a showing or an open house or something, and you get that aha moment where, and I've been there myself before when I've chosen a house myself, you just know when you know. And to see those light bulbs go off and people say, aha, this is it. What it's going to cost. Then you know that, you've got a situation where at least this home makes somebody happy. That's probably the biggest joy for me is making that come to fruition. It still would probably be Tom Landry. I'm a real fan of Tom Landry. Big Dallas Cowboy fan. And by the way, we have all 32 teams represented here in the Villages, NFL teams. We meet on Sundays during the season at Gators Dockside. Great place. It's a great sports bar, and it's a lot of fun. Oh gosh, I don't know that it gets better than what we are right now. It's you get up every morning, you've got all these golf courses. I don't know that I have a next, actually. I don't imagine that I'll ever leave the Villages. In fact, a lot of people I've had clients that have either bought or sold houses here or some mold. Most people, in fact, stay here and buy 2 or 3 homes before they're out, before they, lights out. Let's face it, we're in the winter of our lives here, and I can't imagine it getting much better. This has got to be the best retirement area in the world.